Florida Congressman and House Judiciary Committee member Matt Gaetz. Congressman, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So we're now getting word that the Republicans, the House Republicans, are perhaps getting quite close to putting a $5 billion wall bill on the floor as a show of support for the president. I'm assuming you'd support that, and if so, how close are we to seeing it?
I would. House Republican leadership is always willing to support the president when it looks like we won't get it over the finish line. Here we've got a challenge in the Senate. What we should have done, Trish, is fight for this earlier in the Congress before we went out and lost the majority. I think that if we'd have been just as strident about border security and wall funding, we might have done better in certain places. Right now, we're here in kind of the death rattle of the Republican control of the Congress, and I think we're right to focus on it, but frankly, it's something we should have been a little more focused on over the last 2 years.
All right, well then, given that you didn't focus on it and given that the House is now going to the Dems, tipping to the Dems, are you going to be able to get anything done?
I think we will actually get things done on maybe not on immigration, but on issues like trade, on issues like cannabis reform. We could move the needle. When it comes to immigration,
I don't think that
unfortunately,
cannabis
I think the Democrats need it too much.
You know, and I've done some documentaries over on another network about this, but I don't think cannabis reform is necessarily high on most
Did you just say cannabis reform isn't high?
Is that what you said?
It's a very unfortunate
pun intended,
for you, Trish.
Okay? All right, thank you for that, Representative Gaetz. Let me ask you, though, about Mueller and where this thing is going, because I've been through the documents over and over. I've read every single bit of these sentencing memorandums, and what I do not see is anything that points to collusion, sir. I see that he's got them on some technicalities, and you said this one, apparently you meant that, but I don't, and timing, etc., but I don't see anything that indicates that somehow Donald Trump and his campaign were working collectively together with the Russians to steal the election from Hillary Clinton.
And you'll remember Adam Schiff promised us evidence of collusion many months ago. It's never come to bear. If you read the sentencing memos, there's no evidence of collusion. If you even look at Jim Comey's testimony earlier this week, he confessed that when he was fired, there was no evidence that Donald Trump or anyone associated with his campaign had broken any laws related to, collaboration, collusion, or any type of criminal activity with Russia. That squares with what Lisa Page told us in her interview, that even 10 months into the investigation, there was no there. There was no indication of wrongdoing. The reason this is troubling is that now you've got people like Manafort and potentially Roger Stone facing process crimes and Flynn, and maybe not crimes that they would ever be held to account for if it weren't for this.
Who's been on this show, and I just spoke with, and I'm going to share with you what he told me, and it's frightening. It really is. But he's spoken at length about the feds knocking on his door and the intimidation tactics. Let me turn from Russia to another big issue, and that's Google.
Yes.
The CEO in the hot seat today. Today he was grilled by House lawmakers, including you, over these allegations that the search giant has a political bias against conservatives on its platforms. We've certainly seen a lot of evidence of it. Take a look.
Do you believe that Google is biased? It's either yes or no.
No, not in our approach.
There's discussion of suppressing conservative speech. Why would that not be something that you would launch an internal investigation in?
We have checks and balances so that employees, and we not just on this issue, across any issue, we protect the sanctity of our systems, our product development process, and we would do that.
For you to come in here and say there is no political bias in Google tells us you either are being dishonest, I don't want to think that, or you don't have a clue how politically biased Google is.
I mean, you're all right. And I'm going to say this because when you look at that tape, and we've shown the viewers, I'm not going to rehash it again, but you see them basically crying, right, the day after the election. And the executives are very, very upset. It's clear to me that they have their bias. They don't want to admit it. Either that they don't want to admit it, as Louis Gohmert said, or they're just flat out lying to the American people and lying to their employees. Are you satisfied, Congressman, with those answers that you got from the CEO today?
I am not. Google claims to have found no bias, but they also claimed not to have looked for it. Google sets up chat rooms for their employees to talk about ideas, and one of those chat rooms is literally called Resist, so that members of the Google team can talk about the ways in which they're going to use their job to try to undo election results that they don't agree with out in Silicon Valley. Now, I don't want Washington running my life, Trish, but I sure as heck don't want Silicon Valley running my life. And I think that if they're able to reshape the four corners of the debate and exclude voices and prioritize others, it really can have an impact in a country that is pretty divided 50-50 on political lines. And so we want more of that transparency. And frankly, Google needs to do the right thing and find the people who were talking about framing the debate on, for example, the travel ban. And let's see some consequences. I think that would do a lot more to instill people's faith in the Google user experience.
I hear you, Representative. I really do. So let me turn to another topic, so as long as I have you here tonight. And that's Huawei and this executive, the CFO, that was arrested by the Canadian authorities at our request. Remember, sir, that the president was going into his negotiation meetings, his big dinner in Buenos Aires, with none other than Xi Jinping, and he's there with his whole team. And we heard from Peter Navarro, he told me right here on this show, that somehow the president had no idea. No one going in, he said, to that meeting that night, not Mnuchin, and not Navarro, not Kudlow. He claims not even Bolton, although Bolton had said something different previously, knew about it. So I'm asking you, why wouldn't the DOJ tell the president? I mean, as he's walking into that dinner, hey, by the way, right now, as you guys sit down to eat and break bread, we're arresting this woman. It's kind of going to be a big deal. The president today, by the way, I should say that he's willing to reconsider all this as part of the negotiations. So that kind of tells me, once again, he had no idea what was going on. Why wouldn't he?
President Trump understands leverage, but to be able to utilize that leverage on behalf of the American economy and the American worker, he's got to be armed with all of the information. So I think you've correctly highlighted how the administration didn't serve the president well. What we have seen is that when he has all the tools, he's able to reform NAFTA so that it works more for the American people. He's able to get us out of bad deals like the Paris Accord. And so I'm hopeful that with a new attorney general, we're probably going to need to really clear a lot of people out.
They say it was just a coincidence, by the way.
Well,
just a coincidence.
I don't really believe in Washington coincidences. Yeah, there's no coincidence in this town, but we've got a new attorney general. Let's clean house over at the Department of Justice. Let's get some new people that aren't inside the Beltway to help make decisions, and let's improve the communication on these issues so that we can work together as a team for the country.
Sounds like a good deal to me. Congressman Gaetz, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining me tonight.